right, welcome back. And the discussion on KIVUMBI 2022, the eve of the election, it's 23:19, that's 11:19, 6 hours to the opening of the polls. Very interesting. A consequential election where you make the decision who is coming in and who is going out. I mean, they have sold their hearts and minds to you. So it's up to you to make the decision tomorrow. Remember, there's a lot in the ballot this year, and it's all to do with our future, our democracy, the electoral justice, our progress as a nation, our health system. All these, count them, is on the ballot tomorrow. It's not about the individuals, it's about the future of this country. Remember, at this particular time, our debt is in crisis. They say that even unborn children are about 100,000 Kenyan shillings. So 22,120,458 of you will be going to the polls tomorrow to vote for about 16,105 positions. Out of that, the women are few. Most of them, 14,000, are men. 1,900 are women, and of course only 1,888 can be elected in this election. Very interesting. 1,879 can be elected in this election, which means 14,218 of them will have to go back home and begin afresh from wherever they will be. My guests tonight are discussing what transpired tonight with the IEBC, that ground announcement about 4 areas, 2 gubernatorial positions, Mombasa, Kakamega, won't be voted for, including 2 parliamentary positions, Kacheliba and Pokot South. They all agree tonight that this was an error that should not have happened. A message here from a viewer who says this is the biggest laugh Kenya has been subjected to. Heads rolling is nothing. Let those responsible serve in jail. I mean, wasn't there a way of checking and ticking before flying the boxes home? I mean, they dropped the ball at the last minute, preparations for 2 years. Let's conclude this discussion, Professor. Way forward, the voters have to go out tomorrow and vote. But that's it. There's possibility of apathy if they're not going to vote. But what is the word that you can tell them? This is very important. You have to, regardless of if you're not going to vote for a governor. And I asked Daktari, enough is enough, but how soon is soon do you think this will be gazetted?
I don't know how soon this one will be gazetted, because it will depend on the time they have to finish with the current election. That is tomorrow and the day after, and probably gazette the date for the next one next week. But before they do that, someone must pay for this.
Someone must pay for this.
Even if it means a commissioner being suspended from office and a tribunal being set up during being established to probe that particular commissioner at this particular time, let it be.
Tribunals are set by the president. The president is outgoing. Who sets it up?
The president is still in office today.
He can still, he has a legal mandate to do that.
Today he is in office.
Until the next president is sworn in.
The point is,
yes,
we cannot let this thing go.
Just like that, like every other thing.
We have had so many cases in the past of electoral justices, but no one has ever been punished for it.
The most interesting thing, Prof, about this is that 2 areas perceived stronghold of one of the candidates, Raila Odinga. Second interesting thing about this, Raila Odinga had nominated the 2 gentlemen, one for land, one for planning or treasury, right? So it means even if the election is postponed and he's elected, he has to form a government. What happens in those counties? There's a constitutional lacuna in this. I don't know which one.
This issue goes to the grain of what makes Kenya a country, what we stand for, what our people died for. It is much more serious than just naming these people to be cabinet members. What has happened? How? Every 5-year cycle? Ken, in Japan, when it's perceived that you make mistake, not that you made it, but it is perceived, you resign. And some of them goes as far as killing themselves. The same thing with the South Korea. That has the same character. In Britain, they resign. In America, they resign, or they go to jail for many years. Now, if we want democracy, if we want to develop our country, then we as the people must commit that when you go to serve public, you are going to serve the interest of public, not your interest. And that may weed out some of the people who are not prepared to serve public to be in. They can be chicken farmers, goat farmers, and other things, but away from serving the public. So what must happen is Kenya must demonstrate that we are responsible.
Okay.
Secondly, we need to re-engineer the whole thing. And I'm not saying lightly about military. You know, the military does a lot in America and other areas. And if it is found that it is the military that can supervise the printing of our papers, because I don't understand, we print our money here. There's never been an issue about the money we print. If the military is the one that need to supervise our printing of our paper, I've been associated with military for a long time. These people are disciplined. They are result-oriented. They will produce the kind of result that Kenya need. And then we need the civilian now to go and run election. But we are going to do it with every single person who is involved, knowing that if you make a mistake, you are going to jail.
Price. That's right.
You sacrifice your family and yourself, and you'll go to jail.
So I think the IEBC have only one duty, or had only one duty to do, is to deliver credible elections, free and fair elections. And that has to be done, and it has to be seen to have been done. And I think such event casts aspersion to the credibility of that election. Such events also help to subvert the democracy, the intention of bringing people out to vote. So I want to just agree with the professors that there has to be consequences. And I think the accountability for this has to be as serious as the accountability that has been taken against the returning officers who've been found with political aspirants. And I think that would restore the confidence in IEBC, especially given all the gaps that we've seen, whether it's with verification of the KIMS kit, whether with the registration or transfer of candidates, or the testing of all this. So there has to be accountability, and I think that has to really be very, 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 very key. And I'm hoping that the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution actually jumps onto this as fast as possible, so that we can see people arraigned in court, whether it's a commissioner or someone who was supposed to be supervising that. There has to be consequences. Having said that, I think the challenge for Kenyans who are listening is, do not let this event undermine your right to exercise your sovereign power to vote tomorrow. Kenyans, go out and vote on issues. There's so much at stake, especially for young people. There is so much at stake for the future. We are burdening you guys with debt. Inequality is off the roof. Poverty is off the roof. The cost of doing business in the country, entrepreneurship, and there's so much at stake that young people must not be discouraged by such events, but they must come out to really vote in large numbers, to really undermine any efforts or such events that are diverting their right to exercise their voice.
I think you're absolutely right, and I want to emphasize that point, because this is the first election in many, many years where Kenyans have been unified in trying to ask the question, what do we do to rebuild our society? Which of the two governments that are likely to win can we entrust with our lives? Can we entrust with the policies to revive the economy, entrust with the policies to make Kenya a better place to live in? And if IEBC is undermining that particular quest, then even our commissioner should be stepping down, whoever was responsible for printing of the ballots, because
Absolutely.
Someone must step down by tomorrow morning.
Okay. And of course, earlier on, we asked you a question on Scooper News. We asked you if you will be voting in this election. And so far, the opinion poll online is 27 says they will not be voting, and 73 of you say you'll be voting. So a few of the reasons why you say you'll be voting before we go to our next topic are this now. The one who says no says I was supposed to travel to Nairobi, but because of expensive travel, I was not able to travel. I'll not be able to voting. Well, that's a lot of concerns for many, because we're going to talk about that, because that's one of the things in the ballot. Our economy is in the ballot. The cost of living is in the ballot tonight. We need a new government because we are tired of the old government, and we need to vote for a new government in. It's very tricky to vote in this election. We don't know who we are voting for. Yes, in order to select new leaders, we need to go, and people need to go out and vote. I just find nothing to feed my family, and hence I will not be voting. Because it's Raila, I believe his manifesto is right. I am a Kenyan and I'll be voting. I can't travel, I'm working. So many reasons. And the most important thing out of this Cooper News, the outcome of this poll, which shows 73 to 27, which I have to say is great. When 73% say they are going to vote, what is the kind of turnout we are going to see this time?
First of all, let me correct you.
Yes.
And the media is making this terrible mistake of running these polls that are not scientific and announcing them as if they are scientific. First of all, your sample is not necessarily random, because it's collected from just only the people responding to Cooper News.
Yes.
The fortunate thing is, the statistics that you have read are not very different from what we have heard from scientific polls that have been conducted on the same question of will you be turning out to vote. Close to about 78%, 80%. People say that they will be turning out to vote.
So it's not so far from that.
It's not very far from it, even if yours is not scientific.
It's not scientific,
No,
but it's a reflection of the people
yours
who are on Cooper.
Yours is witchcraft.
I'm officially closing the show tonight.
It is juju.
What is the difference?
Because your sample size is from the same people who are alike.
Yes.
It's not really random. It's from writing. If there is a better way of getting a scientific sample.
No, but it's quite near.
The turnout, we must say this, the turnout in Kenya's elections is higher than many countries in Africa. I do not expect a turnout rate of less than 75%.
75%.
There is 2013 we had a turnout of 83%.
2002 was the highest, 88.
No.
2002.
No.
Yeah.
It was about 67.
2002.
Yes.
When Kenyans were most optimistic.
Yes.
68%.
Yes, because that was also very high, because the previous elections and 65 and
1997.
64, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And remember also the voter register of 2002 was not a clean voter register. It had dead voters.
You had to find some fault inside.
No, we had dead voters. The current voter register is very different from the previous one. So we are very sure about the current voter register.
Okay.
We are not going to get voter turnout of probably not less than 75%.
Across the country or in specific areas?
The average in the country will be about 75 or so.
Average.
But there are some areas of the country which are typical, which are associated with the low voter turnout. Places like in Bungoma have got very high registered voters, but when it comes to voting, very low. Actually, in general terms, the Luyas are the worst voters in this country, and they have never recognized that. They have got highest potential to make or break the presidential election, but
the third highest voting bloc, if I'm not wrong, in the country.
I think the fourth. In terms of voter registration, they have got the lowest voter registered voters, and yet the second highest in population.
And they don't vote.
And they don't register, and they don't vote. And yet they say they want to be.
So the average for Western Kenya, you're placing it as 50?
67.
60, 70, which is still quite near.
No, compared to Central Kenya, where there is always 87.
But that's what they're saying this time around. Central Kenya might be different.
Central Kenya will be around 70s now or less. Well, 70s or less, most likely less.
On account of not having a candidate from
They are not
Kenya.
passionate anymore because they don't have anyone of their own.
Okay.
Ken, this election is different. We're moving from personality, Moi or Uhuru or Raila and all that, to issue-oriented election. For the first time, consumers' issues were centerfold. The cost of bread, the cost of unga, the cost of... and you can see the reaction. This never happened before in Kenya. And this is the trend, this is where we need to go, such that we focus our leaders on the issues that matter. How are you able to deal with corruption? how are you able to bring the Kenyan together so this tribal thing can die and then we can move on as Kenyan people? How are you able to deal with our standing in the East Africa, in the continent of Africa, in the world? Now, I talked about we are selling avocado to China. We can grow as many avocado as we want, but if we don't have the buyer, they will rot, like mangoes used to rot in Kibwana area, until we find a way to upgrade it, such that the growers can now get the benefit of that. China is selling even toothpicks to Kenya, as if we cannot make our own toothpick. So we must find ways to penetrate through Chinese market so we can sell our ware. We must penetrate through American market so we can trade and sell things to America. But the first thing first, we must address the issue of East Africa integration so that we can work together. Our biggest exporter, our biggest trade partner has been Uganda. And now Tanzania is coming up very fast. And now we have DRG Congo in the middle. In terms of total value of the 8 countries together, Ken, we are about $240 billion altogether, if you look at the 8 countries. Kenya is 104 billion. Almost half of that is controlled in Kenya. So you can see the role and responsibility that we have taken, how we have developed the country. But we can be better, because as we are sitting here, people are dying in the northeastern province without water. Their cattle are dead. My friend here deals with that issue constantly. And we are sitting down and watching as if those people belong to another country altogether. But we have to be able to feed our people. We have to be able to address the human settlement. Rift Valley used to produce a lot of ngano. Okay? Now we cannot produce bread because there is a war in Ukraine. We can produce enough rice to feed our people. We can produce enough flour, unga, to feed our people if we use the land right like the Israelis are doing it. But this is not going to happen unless we select the right people, unless we're disciplined about it, and therefore you must vote to make that happen.
You must vote.
Just to add, I think, as Professor said, I think we are seeing our democracy mature. And I think the trends have been moving away from voting on tribal lines or voting our tribal chiefs. And this is the first election that I think, even when you look at the manifesto, there's been an effort to analyze the problem and offer some solutions to some of those problems. The question can be asked about if those solutions are really going to work. But I think, especially for young people, and I think for me, my appeal is really to young people, because we are seeing a lot of even the people who are standing up to be elected for political positions, a lot of them are young people. But as well, the number of registered voters, I know this year has gone down compared to previous elections, but young people have so much at stake. And I think when you look at both political parties, the dominant ones, the Kenya Kwanza and the Azimio, they've tried to offer solutions in terms of creating an enabling environment, for example, for the private sector to thrive, to create jobs, to create industries. And we have a lot of young people who have graduated from many, many universities in the country who are unemployed. And these are people who are looking for an enabling environment for them to exercise their industriousness and their enterprise to create jobs as well. We're also seeing a very huge inequality. And I think you talked about voter turnout. In some of these arid and semi-arid lands, the 10 counties or the 3 most affected like Marsabit and Mandera and Turkana, there are people who are starving. I think we're talking about 4.1 million Kenyans who have no food, 2.1 probably facing crisis. The question is, are these people able even to vote tomorrow when they are hungry? And we've seen states or governments' failure to make sure that those people who are left behind by this economic growth are not very well taken care of. And so I think the encouragement is that people should really come out to vote, and not necessarily just vote because of their ethnic affiliations, but to vote on the issues. The political parties have articulated those issues. We have to vote for them as well. You mentioned the issue of debt. I think we've seen successive governments, especially the current government, they've put us in a debt crisis. If the next government comes and borrows more, young people have to know that they'll be getting a very, very big bill that they have to pay. So the only accountability, the direct democracy that citizens can exercise is to come in and vote, and not just vote on the basis of issues. Some of the reasons that people are citing not to come out to vote are very, very good reasons why people should be coming out to vote. I don't have work, so I don't have something to eat. That's a very, very good reason to actually come out and say, how do I vote this time round to make sure that by come the next elections in 2027, I'm not in the same situation, that I have no food or I have no job, so I can't go out to vote for that matter. So I think the reasons that Kenyans are citing to not come out and vote are actually the reason why they should be coming out to vote anyway.
Yeah, let me address that issue in a different way.
Yes, Prof.
And I would like to begin by saying that there has been a disconnect in the last 15 or so years between politics and development, and therefore causing disillusionment. One, people are not running for office in order to make the country better. The time we used to have servant type of leaders was in the 70s and 80s, when a school teacher would run and win an election, when someone serving in a local cooperative society would run for election and win an election. These days, because of cost of politics in Kenya, you can Mujongo, I think you cannot win a parliamentary seat because it will cost you 20 million shillings, right? So a majority of the people running for office in this 2022 elections, someone tells me to the tune of about 65% cite business as their occupation, right? The young people you see running for office as well, a majority of them could be professionals, but when you look inside what is it that they say they want to do, you'll see an inclination, not necessarily service, but we can say everyone is running for office for self-enrichment, because politics has been a source of enrichment rather than service to the communities. The second thing to mention here is that devolution is supposed to make things work, even in the counties of northern Kenya, even in other counties that we are talking about in different parts of this country. But for the last 10 years, the national government has made devolution a very difficult exercise, with some of the devolved functions remaining at the national government ministries, and therefore making it difficult for some of the counties to service their people in the manner that they are supposed to do. Equalization fund was meant to help those particular counties to catch up with the rest of the country by providing roads, electricity, building better schools, so that people in Marsabit, Mandera, Wajir, Turkana can catch up with the rest of the country. Unfortunately, equalization fund has not been delivered as it should be. And remember, the mistake we do in this country, and it's something that we should be guilty of. A child in Mandera and Wajir who does not go to school often because there is no teacher will do the same exam with your child and my child who goes to school every day, and they'll compete for the same equal opportunities. But when we start saying let's treat Mandera and Wajir differently, Ken Mujungu will be the first one to protest about that.
But Professor
we are a country that needs to correct ourselves and go to say there is a need to start treating parts of this country differently.
No, thank you very much for bringing that. But I think for me, that is the basis that I think for me people should come out and vote, that we have political entrepreneurs who see running for public office as a means to self-enrichment. But amidst that, even 65%, and I'll trust you as a professor, then we have about 35% of people who are standing up to be elected because they're standing up for issues. And I think the electorate has to be smart enough to come out and vote, but to be able to decipher who is running for public office, whether it's at MCA level, whether it's at governor level, or even at presidential level, who is running for these elections purely because they are looking at their own selfish interests.
I think you have
they're
hit,
using
you have
they're
hit
using
the nail on the head.
they're using the political office as a means to self-enrichment. And who is coming in because they really care about the social contract that they're signing
what
with
is the
them.
parameters of measuring that?
So I think one of them is the track record.
Yes.
I think for me, the track record, we know people who are corrupt in this country.
Only suffices when you have a record of public service. Track record, how do you trace track record?
I think let's
if you haven't served in the public where you can be measured against something.
No, let's trust electorates. They are smart enough to tell people who are corrupt at the local level, people who have court cases because of corruption, people who are known who have a track record of theft. I think for me, this electorate should come out and do not vote for those people. We have a lot of young people also who are coming out and they are bribing people. If someone is bribing you with 200 shillings to come out and vote and not selling any policy, common sense has it that probably they'll get office and they'll try to return that 200 anyway over the past 5 years. You will never ever see them.
Yes.
But there are a lot of young people who are just going door to door and they are selling
campaigning
issues. They're
without
not giving you any money
Yeah.
and they're giving you issues.
Yeah.
People are actually saying we've ate enough. Now it's time to go vote, and I think for me the electorate must go out and try to look through
we
the
have run
candidates.
a, we have run a, we have run a survey, we have run a poll,
Yeah.
asking people what you do if someone comes with money and gave you money and told you to vote for him. 65% say that I'll take the money,
but I'll not vote for
I'll
him.
not vote for him.
Absolutely.
Ken,
So things are changing.
There's hope.
Yeah.
There is a kid last time, I don't remember his name, who jumped on top of a motorbike and got elected.
The one
Member
from
of Parliament.
somewhere in Meru, I think.
Somewhere in Meru.
Yes.
It's still possible.
Yeah.
But we need to track back and we need to raise questions, because what I'm telling you, as a vice chancellor over the last 10 years, I counsel a lot of young people, young student leaders who want to go out and run for election. And the question I raise is, why do you want to run? What's the purpose? And some of them absolutely had no answer, except, I can buy a car, I can start a small business, I can do other things. It's,
no real motivation.
It's ending up in money, and I discourage them from doing that. There was 1 or 2 kids that I thought can go in and really begin the leadership right away because of what they were saying. Leadership comes from everywhere, Ken. It's not only in the public service. It can come from military. It can come from professors like ourselves, Kebuta Kebwana and Anyang' Nyong'o are proving that in Kenya. It can come from healthcare worker. It can come from a outstanding business person who has proved himself. That is the way it is in a democracy around the world. And therefore, what we need to do is to demonstrate to these people, once and for all, that if you go in and take something that don't belong to you, number one, you will never be elected in a public office. And therefore, it's going to be a record for you and your family the rest of your life.
Something that is happening some governor aspirants.
Completely, we send you
completely,
for you to go and steal papers in the university and call yourself a master's or a PhD. It's shame. So we will put a stop when we start putting these people in jail. They can serve term at committee and maybe become carpenters for us, do something useful.
We messed up as a country in 2013. The 2013 election is actually what has created the crisis we have here, because it was a choice between the ICC indictment of both the president and his deputy and the choice of leaders who would foster a new constitutional dispensation. That mistake we made is the mistake that we have continued to rely on today. And things will never change until we say national leadership is a service leadership.
I just wanted to add, I think, what Professor was talking about, the character of the candidates we are placing out to vote. And I think I mentioned earlier about the judicial process, and you are very keen, Ken, to say that will be a letter process. And I think for me, the dispute I have with our judicial system is that we have a very weak pre-electoral legal route for redressing some of these concerns. So, for example, the issue of integrity, I think Chapter 6 of the Constitution is very, very clear. But then we have people on the ballot papers who are of questionable integrity past. And I think it's partly the pre-electoral judicial process that is failing Kenyans. If we get that to work, then we can filter out a lot of political entrepreneurs or people who just want to come in for the corruption as well, people who have integrity. We should make sure that the pre-electoral legal process works to prevent those people from getting to the ballot. We should stop looking at the court as a thing that comes later on. It has to be a very active participant throughout the electoral process. And I think for me, the pre-electoral process is a very, very good one. We talked about electoral malpractices. There's plenty of electoral malpractices that I think for me, the court, again, pre-electoral legal processes have to be very, very effective in doing that as well. Why do we have a lot of independent candidates running? It's because some of them thought the nomination processes for their party was flawed, or they were rigged out, or they were not even given an opportunity. IEBC even tried to threaten political parties that if you don't get the 2/3 gender rule, you will be barred from going into elections. What did the court do? The court suspended that instruction as unconstitutional. So I think the court also has to really step up, especially at the pre-electoral legal processes, as an avenue for seeking redress, so that people can go out and petition, whether stakeholders, whether it's citizens, the media, civil society, observers, that we can be able to petition so that the people who make it to the ballot are people of high social standing and people of integrity. We will have cut out a lot of some of the challenges that we are facing already. So I think for me, let's not look at the court process as the far end, as the last solution. No. I think for me, it has to be a very active participant, and I don't think we are really using that avenue.
I know if Dr. we opened that avenue for discussion tonight, we will not finish, because there was a lot of things that played in even to making that decision. You remember when EACC sent that list to IEBC, and IEBC said we cannot act on this list. So there's a lot of things that happened. But I agree entirely with you that we have to be vigilant at the beginning, from the outset, when we are running, the people declare the names. And I think that's where we need to start, not wait for them, because even right now, there is a saying that there are people who got to the ballot now and they're going to be voted. In case they are voted in, that will be the first ground for an election petition.
Exactly.
The final, which is a waste of time for Kenyans, because we'll have to go to another election, yet it would have been. But now, because we are going to the tail end, the other reasons, I know you've mentioned quite a number of reasons in your submissions as to why we need to vote in this election. But there's one more thing that Kenyans are looking at in this election. Individuals as opposed to ethnicity, or what we traditionally know as the big people right there. I mean, automatically, you mention someone and we know they will run. So that's one of the aspects that Kenyans are looking for. But the question is, at what point can Kenyans go beyond that and elect people in the office for what they bring in, and not necessarily judging them that, oh, Professor is old, let's do this, oh, Ken is young, let's do this. Because again, in this election, 2017, there are a lot of disappointments from young people also in the election. So as we go forward to this election, is that something that should concern Kenyans when they go to this election, and weighing against why are we voting and why shouldn't we vote?
So I think fundamentally, it goes back to the basic principle of why we vote in the first place. So I think this is political philosophy around really the social contract, and how we as citizens contract with the sovereign, the state, in terms of what mandate do you have of us? How do you protect our freedoms and justice and our liberties, and which powers are we giving to you to exercise that to us? So I think for me, there's an element of voter education that I think we've not done to really ground our democracy in very robust thinking in terms of why we vote in the first place. And I think we've come to be conditioned to vote people on the basis of our tribe, on the basis of their age, on the basis of whether we like them. We use sometimes elections to settle personal scores, whether we love people or we hate them, so we vote out of spite. So there's a lot of electoral sensitization and awareness for people to understand that the vote is not just your right. The vote is your sovereign power. You are actually exercising that sovereign power.
Okay.
And on what basis are you exercising it? What are you demanding? What are you contracting with the state to do? What rights do you want them to protect? What liberties do you want them to protect? What public services do you want them to provide? Some of these electoral candidates have been coming and saying, oh, we will open industries. The work of the state is not to open industries. The work of the state is to create an enabling environment for the private sector, for the citizens to exercise their liberty to do that. So I think the citizen education really goes to the foundation of the voting, and I think it can really improve the quality of our democracy.
Prof.
Ken, I clench when I listen to politicians in this country and the way they go around rallying people, peddling money as if these people are sort of animal, reducing them to chicken. You give $50 shillings here, 100 shillings, and people are coming in so that they can vote for you. I think the time is coming, Ken, when, like in United States, people will have a list of all the things you say you are going to do, and they check mark them. And if your check mark is less than 30%, they write you off. And so we need to, like my friend here is saying, to empower the electorate at the grassroots level. And anyone who's going around providing money or hiring goons to beat up people need to be immediately disqualified. You know, those so pre-election measures, and people know it matters, such that they will not touch it anymore. Because if they touch it, they won't. It doesn't matter who. The rule is the rule. You are president, you are running for governor, you are running for whatever. If you violate those, Ken, because I can tell you, I chair the Committee on National Value. Julius Moyer, the PS in the Treasury, was our secretary. And we documented everything and put it very nicely together, which explained Article 6. When you violate Article 6, you have no business running for public office in this country. And we cannot just look because you have so many lawyers around. We have to be able to determine that you are not qualified, you cannot run for any public office in this country.
Okay. Prof, we're going into an election with a lot of stakes, and the question then is, are Kenyans, in your view, are Kenyans more informed now than they were probably in 2017 or in 2013? This is the third election that we are doing under the current constitution.
Kenyans are very informed. It's only that our leaders look alike. These leaders are the same. Were they not friends in 2007? Were they not friends in 2013? Were they not friends in 2017? And that's why you find that quite a number of Kenyans are saying this election is very different from the previous elections, because no matter what there is, you are making a choice from people who look somehow different, except some of them have got very good track record in defending governance and promoting the rule of law, and would value to have a better country governed by laws. Others have a track record in stealing, and they would better have a country which is governed by very different types of values. So Kenyans really have got a mixed bag of leaders to choose from, and that's what is making it very complicated. But I would like to tell Kenyans this: vote in this election with a conscience, knowing that you are voting for your future and for the future of the generations to come. You either vote or shut up in the next five years.
Tell me something, Prof. Do you believe there are undecided voters in the country?
There are undecided voters.
When do they decide?
They decide almost when people are going to the polling station.
When they are on the queue?
When they are on the queue, yes.
That's when they decide?
And not because they have been given money. There are some people, let me put it this way. I've seen instances where people decide who to vote for on the last day, and some of them even vote for the candidate they know will not win, because their conscience is telling them, I know so and so, I can't, even if he wins, that's not the kind of person to be associated with my vote.
Okay, so as we end, overall looking at the deployment, the security and the preparations, what's your confidence level in this election?
I believe that the elections will be peaceful. What we're just asking that they need to be free and fair. So I think IEBC have only one thing: let them count the votes accurately. They have one job to do tomorrow, is just make sure that they count the votes. We need to know who wins this election in no uncertain terms. So I think for me, my judgment is that it will be a peaceful elections. Kenyans will go out and vote. The IEBC really cannot fail us. by any other. I think let's take the failure today as probably the last one. Let them make sure that they count the votes, transmit them, and tell us in very quickly who wins these elections. Okay. But just the last one, I think the citizens, let's go out and vote. Especially young people, don't sit at home with your vote and just say that, oh, I'm not going anywhere to vote. Exercise that right and vote on the basis of your future. Have your future in mind. Have 20, 30 years in mind, and elect that leader who will help us move to a more prosperous Kenya.
Already they failed us by not registering as voters in this election. So the few that registered,
the few
3 million,
that they have to come
I believe
out.
the 3 million are new voters.
Exactly.
They are new voters. Prof, your confidence level in this election, and
very,
if you have,
very high.
Very high. Okay.
Yeah, very high. Ken, there is a term the English use called externalities. Externalities is what you are known for. Kenya is known for sports, long distance. We're known for a wonderful place to watch animals. We are also known for being one of the most corrupt countries in the world, 128 out of 180. This is a defining moment for all of us to say that yes, sport, we can turn sport into a mega industry, like what China is doing, like what Europe is doing, America is doing, that will hire millions of young people and will reduce the issue of unemployment in this country significantly. We're looking for leaders who can take that jump and demonstrate to us that they are committed and they can do that. We're looking at the issue of security, defining security. We cannot be free and we cannot develop without security. Al-Shabaab is still around. They're not gone. And so they will disrupt when they know we are different, when they know we are conflict, when they know we are not committed. And therefore, this is the time to demonstrate to the rest of the world that Kenyans are committed for their future, defining it, and we are going to turn out in a large number to vote.
And choose to exercise that right. That is the Constitution. Right.
I'm confident that we are going to have a very peaceful election. I'm very confident that Kenyans will be making good judgment in this election. They are going to choose leaders both at presidential and other levels on basis of quality of leadership, and values is going to be an important thing. But I've got one message I would like to give to the media. Kindly tell the international media not to look for violence in Kenya, because the international media that is present in the country monitoring this election are not looking for the issues that we are discussing here. The international media is looking for violence in Africa, and they think Kenya is a place where you can get that violence in an election. Please tell them to style up. The international media should style up. They should stop looking for drama where there is no drama. We are a very different country, and I think they need to be taught in no uncertain terms that Africa is not a place for experiments. The same with the international experts that are around. They are looking for violence and tensions in our country, even when there isn't any. They would like to cook it up. And I think there is a need for you people to start also communicating the same with them, that Kenya is not a violent country, and therefore they should not be looking at 2022 as a violent, as an election that is likely to bring violence. Because that's what most of them are looking for. Even when they interview us, they're asking, where is violence going to come from?
That's what they ask. Where's the area of conflict?
Yes. Okay. You know, instead of asking where is the future of the country with these elections. And I feel very frustrated. And I might actually decide to say that, to mobilize people to block international media.
Covering this.
Yeah, from covering.
A good place to end the discussion tonight. And gentlemen, I know I've kept you longer, but the day has just begun. In about 6 hours, Kenyans go into the election, the most consequential, and you have made it so clear. I need not belabor on that. In this election, there's a lot at stake. The future of our nation, the future of the generations is at stake. Your future is at stake. So the 22 million, that's almost half of the population, are going to make the decision for Kenyans. About 16,105 are going for this election. But at the end of the day, it's upon you to make that decision. I mean, they have told you everything. You have to make that decision. So make a wise choice going into the election. Tomorrow we begin this coverage at 5 a.m. In about 5 hours from now. We will be live right here and across the country. When the polls open at 6 a.m., trust us to be around the 290 constituencies, and we will be there until the first vote is counted, the last vote is counted, is tallied, and the announcements made. And gentlemen, I want to thank you very much, and I want to give you an official invite, Prof. An official invite once more. We have to do this for Kenya, not tomorrow, not Wednesday, but by the time the results will be declared, I know I'll have you back here. Thank you so much for watching, Professor Kanyinga, asante sana, Professor Midamba, and Daktari asanteni sana for coming. Thank you so much for watching Kivumbi 2022. My name is Ken Mijungo. On behalf of the whole team, have a good night. 5 a.m. in the morning, make a date with us and see what KTN News will do for you in this election. Have a good night and God bless.